Adirondack history books usually center the legendary wilderness guides or the wealthy industrialists who built great camps across the park. But long before European settlement, indigenous Haudenosaunee and Abenaki people lived in the mountains for thousands of years. A new book is finally bringing some of that history to light, filling in the details of the first Adirondackers on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Securities offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower is an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, December 23rd. First up, people in and around the city of Watertown are getting frustrated by a boil water order that's expected to last through Christmas. It's affecting homes and businesses, including some restaurants closing until potable water returns. At a press conference last night, Watertown City Manager Eric Wagoner said a storm last Friday stirred up sediment in the Black River.
When you have 70-mile-an-hour winds, multiple inches of rain, and a snowmelt all at the same time with an already low-level water in the river, we're pretty confident that had a significant impact on the settlement basin.
The city issued the boil water notice on Sunday after it found high turbidity levels in the city's water supply. Sediment in the water can block UV rays used to treat and disinfect it. Stephen Jennings is the director of public health for Jefferson County. At last night's press conference, Jennings said that while the public health risk is low, it's important for people to boil all water used for drinking, cooking, brushing teeth, even hand washing dishes.
The likelihood of illness is very low. However, if you have symptoms such as a headache, stomach cramping, diarrhea, vomiting, we advise to please seek medical attention. And if you're immunocompromised, particularly, you should be very mindful of symptoms.
The boil water order is in place for the city and town of Watertown, the town of Pamelia, and the Great Bend Water District in the town of Champion. City officials said in a statement today that contaminant levels have been declining in recent days. They're testing the water today and again tomorrow and Thursday. Results could take up to 2 days to come back, so the boil water order is expected to remain in place through Christmas. Drinkable water is available at the Watertown Airport, but people need to bring their own containers. Paul Smith's College professor Kurt Stager and indigenous artist and educator Dave Fadden used carbon dating to determine the age of indigenous artifacts found across the Adirondacks. They include pieces from Fadden's collection at the Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center in Anchayota. Together, they use that archaeological evidence to trace more than 12,000 years of indigenous presence in the region. And they documented it all in a new book called The First Adirondackers. Stager and Fadden spoke with NCPR's David Escobar about their book and why indigenous Adirondack history is sometimes misunderstood.
This whole concept that there were no people living year-round is one of those topics that just stuck in the psyche of not only the Adirondackers, but anybody who visits the Adirondacks. You have to keep in mind a couple things. First is there's a lot of archaeological evidence that we have in our own collection. All of these artifacts were found by accident. Just random people going on a hike and stumble upon an arrowhead, a piece of pottery or a whole pottery bowl, a dugout canoe, artifacts that go back thousands of years. So there's no question there's human presence. Now, Europeans have only been here a little time. And when they arrived into the Adirondacks, it was during a time of upheaval among our people. The whole entire Six Nations, which encompassed most of New York State up into Canada, the population after the War of 1812 was as low as 10,000 people left. So during that time, when you start losing people in your population, you start losing memories. You start losing stories, oral traditions of these places you used to live. And there may have been pockets here and there, but our population was gone and we were displaced.
In the book, you have this map of all the different artifacts that you've discovered across the Adirondacks. Can you talk about some of those artifacts and how you decipher just about how old they are?
The lifestyle of all humans through most of human history, and most of the indigenous folks here were not being confined in a small building or a small neighborhood. It was living on an entire landscape. So people left stuff, and you can find it. And a lot of times people were staying in the same kinds of place that we like to stay in when we're on the landscape here for the same reasons, because it's beautiful, it's convenient. Every time I go near a DEC campsite along the shore of a lake, I always look around on the ground. And if you look long enough, pretty good chance DEC picked a spot where people were camping in the old days too for the same reasons. And you'll find little flakes of chert, or flint, you could call it, from where people were sharpening their implements. And the flakes fell and they don't decay. So they sit there, and you can tell that it's been brought by a person, because that kind of mineral does not form naturally in the Adirondacks. Everything from stone items to pottery. We've got some dugout canoes. We were hoping there'd be thousands of years like they are in some other places, and there probably are some. It's just that they haven't been found yet.
This book covers 12,000 years of history, and obviously we can't go back in time and see what photos might have looked like of the Adirondacks, but Dave, you painted pictures of caribou and glaciers on the landscape, and I'm wondering, what exactly did the Adirondacks look like at the time when this book starts?
I remember even as a little kid, walking along with my dad, right in our museum grounds, and there was a stone, and it was sedimentary, and that's not from the Adirondacks, and it was dropped there by a glacier 13,000 years ago. And it hit me back then. He says, yeah, there was ice a mile thick right here. And so when those glaciers started to retreat, and these plants and animals started to appear, so did the humans. And they started to hunt these animals. And like Kurt says, they left artifacts. You can tell how old or how long ago these projectile points were dropped or crafted. And a lot of them have a fluted middle where the wood would be strapped and tied to either a spear, most likely a spear during those days. And they would use a tool called an addle. It gave you more leverage and more power to attack your prey. And so I did an illustration of that. And as an artist, as an illustrator, you take words. And usually most people who read a story or a book, you create imagery in your own head, and you visualize what the words are saying. My job as an artist is take that visualization and put it on canvas or paper. And so it was a bit of a challenge. So, I'm used to the Adirondacks, it's full of trees, but it was different. And Kurt coined a phrase that I use quite often. He says there was people here before there were trees. And so that's profound, when you really think about it.
What do you hope this book adds to what we know about indigenous people in the Adirondacks?
The main focus of the book is to help us grow a bigger picture of what it means to be an Adirondacker. When I first moved here, I had always heard that, it all started a couple hundred years ago with the white guys doing the great camps and the trapping and the railroads and this, that. And I kind of left it at that and went about my business. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people have done. And then if they do bother looking at history, they look at old books. Some of them were written a century ago, and that's what people have been going to.
Like our goal and mission at the Cultural Center it's all about education. It's all about knowledge and stories and information that helps you paint a better picture of a people. And our people, indigenous people in general across this country, don't get enough attention in terms of learning more about us. This is a part of the history of these mountains that have been forgotten, that have been cast aside.
Dave Fadden and Kurt Steger are the authors of the new book, The First Adirondackers, 12,000 Years of Indigenous Peoples in the Adirondack Uplands. They spoke with David Escobar. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario, and Hart, Cox, and Legros of Malone. Sounds like a law firm. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.